this is by no means the last Jan Piet's choice, but you see the Romans had this deity, god, if you like, called Janus. Janus. And Janus is this god with two faces, you see? Like he has a face in the front, like most people do, and a face in the back also. So it becomes hard to know which side is front and which is back anyway. The two faces. And of course, that's why January is called January, because it's like the god Janus, two-faced. You look back and you look forward. And I suppose in many ways, this choice today is a little bit of an end point, because as people know, I think most of you by now know, I'll be away from next Tuesday for about 4 months on what I call study leave. I'll be at the University of Kentucky, believe it or not, in Lexington, Kentucky, that's in the United States, reading, I think, a lot of Latin and ancient Greek, and also, remarkably, speaking, I think, lots of Latin and writing lots of Latin. So this is something that, if you want to know, has been on my mind for a long time, and I have been professionally active with all this for a long time, but somewhat in a somewhat dodgy manner because I have no degree in it. So I'm not going to try and sort of change that maybe. In any way, so I'll be away. So this choice today is therefore a little bit of an end point. I don't think I've ever been away. Well, I was away for like 4 weeks or something early last year, remember? In Europe also. Apart from that, I don't think I've ever missed more than an occasional Wednesday here and there because I had to go to Brisbane or something, you know, on important missions. So this will be a big gap for the first time in Jan Piet's choice. I hope to see everybody, or most of you, back when I am back in May. It's an easy one to remember for me. The next choice I will do after this one is on May 8th. This happens to be, if you want to know, my birthday. So it's very easy for me to remember, maybe not for you. And please don't go into singing happy birthday for me then. But it's easy for me to tell you. Yes. So there we go. At the same time as being a bit of an end point, I think in some ways this choice can also maybe be the beginning of maybe a little series, or a continuation of a little series, with music for a particular instrument from a particular country. And Jody here, who will play the violin today, has previously played a piece for a similar instrument from the same country. And so in a way we're continuing the tradition now, and I'm hoping to take that further later this year, if Jody is willing to take on the immense task of learning all these difficult pieces from that particular country. So this particular piece today, I'm not going to tell you what it is, of course, arrived in the mail, I think, in December a year ago. I think, I'm not quite sure anymore, that it was part of quite a pile of music I ordered from a certain antiquarian in a certain country, from which I sometimes buy music. And there was all kinds of interesting stuff, and the whole thing was a bit reduced for Christmas reasons and so forth. So I put a whole pile of music, most of which I have not done anything with, which is very sad, but some of this music is quite sophisticated, requires this instrument or that instrument, singer, da-di-da-di-da. Not so easy to organize all these things, and there is so many other things to do all the time. Like we had to do a whole day of Beethoven, then we had to do a whole weekend of Brahms and Dvorak, so that had priority, and then I had to read more Latin and more Greek, and there's always things to do. So this particular piece was still lying around, and in fact last week we went through some other music from the same pile, also interesting. I hope that will also become a little project at some point in time. And then we should also maybe try that piece. Oh yes, Jody, of course I made a photocopy way back. That's right, but we never played it. No, we didn't play it. Good. So we finally went through this interesting little piece, and I thought we'd bring that to you today, and I'll tell you later why that is a little bit meaningful for me. Okay? It's an innocent little piece, nothing to worry about. I think it's a very nice piece of music, but you judge for yourself. Okay, first gonna play this piece of music, yes? Good. Are we recording yet, or?
Yes.
Oh gosh, but this was all on the thing from some point in time. Okay, well, all right. Well, welcome everybody, and happy New Year. At home, every Friday night, in fact also without practically any interruption, since early May, I think, I have been teaching this music class, which is a bit about music theory, a bit about music analysis, but and a bit about music listening, talking about performance, all kinds of things. And usually at the beginning of the class, I play a bit from a piece of music, and I try to work with the students, and in this process, they write down bits and pieces of what they hear. Kind of dictation, if you will. Very, very good, and these students are getting much better with this all the time. And it's been a lot of fun. And one of the rituals has been that I have this piece of music on the piano, but the stand is not quite high enough to cover the name of the composer sometimes. So the ritual has been that I had to put something behind it to cover the name of the composer, because otherwise they couldn't guess anymore who the composer might be. You see that? But here you can, I don't think, see it, unless you had very good eyes and you would walk all the way over there, which you're not allowed to do. that this will be posted on YouTube. So maybe if you're watching me now, this is already on YouTube, and this is nonsense what I'm saying now. But as I'm saying this, it's still not on YouTube. So, and if that happens, I have a feeling this will probably be the first presence of this piece of music on YouTube. In fact, I doubt that it has ever been recorded. I don't know, I couldn't quickly find it. I know a little bit something about the piece, but not beyond the copy I have, but not very much. But let me first ask you, what do you think it is? Do you think it's any good? You like it? Nice, right?
It sounds like something that we've all heard before.
Yes, but you haven't, obviously.
Yes, and I mean, my immediate, I was thinking, is it Fritz Kreisler, for instance?
I suppose that is a compliment. I'm not sure if the composer would take it as a compliment, but maybe he would actually, sure. Yeah, I think it's in a way a very, as usual, very good thing to say, because it would be very much Kreisler's time, in a way. Yeah. Fritz Kreisler, if you don't know, I don't want to be particular about these things. Fritz Kreisler, of course, was this great violinist in the late 19th century, early 20th century, and a very famous guy who I think famously missed the gig as concertmaster of the Vienna Phil, because presumably he had too individualistic a way of playing, which I am sure included his vibrato. And the Vienna Phil at this time still played with very little vibrato. And at least one of the other concertmasters, whose name I keep forgetting, there's some recordings, played ridiculously little vibrato, even in the 1920s. And even if that was old-fashioned by then, it was still present. Fritz Kreisler's vibrato was so impressive and so cool if you liked it, and so terrible if you didn't like it, that he had to go one way or the other. And in fact, most people liked it, and then everybody had to do vibrato. And in fact, increasingly, I think we believe that vibrato came into violin playing, string playing, to quite an extent, largely because of Fritz Kreisler doing it. And then the other people having to do it, and all the students having to do it. Vibrato, of course, is that sort of thing, right? Not that they couldn't do it before, but that it's everywhere all the time in string playing, maybe is a 20th century thing that came from Uncle Kreisler. But no, and he composed very wonderful, lovely music of different sorts, but no, this is not by him. Any other guesses?
Have we heard the composer at all last year?
No. I would be very surprised if you had heard a composer ever before. But let's put it this way, what composer would you bet on if you had to? What composer is a bit like this? Nobody? Bit Dvorak-y in a way, right? That's what I thought too. I mean, it's not really like Brahms, the people who were here for Brahms and Dvorak weekend. If you had to pick one of them, I think you would go with Dvorak more likely than Brahms. Which is interesting, but it's obviously neither, right? Yeah. What country do you think it might be from? Russia. Because it's really strong, full-blooded Russian music. We have various Russian people and Russian-speaking people here today. You think it's Russian music? No. Why not? It's not. It doesn't sound Russian. No. German, Czech, Bohemian. Does anybody think it's French? We're doing this French music festival here in Armadale in June 21st, 22nd, 23rd, I think. Does anybody think it's French music, maybe? No. No, right? No, it's not French. German? Well, this composer studied in Germany. In fact, this composer studied, believe it or not, with one of our arrangers from last week, Salomon Jada's son, who was this great composition teacher in Germany. This composer went to study with Jada's son. There you see what Jada's son was like, not only as an arranger, but also as a composition teacher, I think. course, you may like this a bit or a lot, but I think we would all agree it's well written. It's serious, a good piece of music. Like it or not like it. No guesses? Well, this composer, this piece of music was born in the same year as my father's mother, my grandmother. At less a distance from where she was born than Urella is from Armadale. My grandmother was born in 1897, when this piece of music was written, and she was born in the polar lands, in the meadows between the city of Haarlem and Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And this piece of music was born in that same year, presumably. I don't think in the same month, but the same year in Amsterdam, the city of Amsterdam. And this composer was the Netherlands' maybe greatest composer living at that time. Most Dutch musicians and musicologists would not consider this man particularly great in Dutch music history now. But at the time he was considered the great Dutch composer. Taught composition at the Conservatorium in Amsterdam and was played quite a bit. And in fact, when a non-musician historian in the early 20th century wrote a book about Dutch history and in passing mentioned music in the Netherlands as pretty much almost non-existent, and if it existed, it was useless, internationally speaking. And another Dutch composer, Johann Wagenaar, replied by sending in a letter to the editor of some newspaper, I suppose. Wagenaar said, no, this is not true. Dutch music, very good and very much a character of its own. And he gave two examples. One, a different composer. The other one, this man, Bernard Zweers. And Bernard Zweers had written one symphony to my homeland, to my fatherland, in which he portrayed various aspects of the Netherlands at the time, nature, city, and so forth. And so this composer, Bernard Zweers, was seen as one of the monuments of Dutch music alive around the 1900s. So there you have it. This is a romance for violin and piano. Of course, romances for violin and piano we know by various other composers. Beethoven and many others, Dvorak also, and many other composers. A nice little sort of piece, not quite so serious as a sonata, maybe you don't have to think so hard, easy, friendly little piece. Don't you think? And I thought this was so nice because I found online that the manuscript of this piece is somewhere in the Netherlands, I think in The Hague or Amsterdam, and apparently the manuscript is dated 1897. And my grandmother, with whom I spent so much time when I was really little, and I think from whom I got so much music, although not in a technical, formal way, but I think so much of liking music and loving music came in a way from my grandmother and from that side of the family in many ways. That I thought it was so nice to maybe play this piece here today, and as I'm playing it at least, I think very much of Grandma, who passed on a long time ago, at a very high age. She was more than 100 years old when she died, but born at the time that people composed this sort of music. And I think that sort of thing, to realize that for a moment, makes you think about this music and about life a little bit differently. So for me, that's it. Bernard Zweers, if you want to know, was sometimes called the Dutch Bruckner. I don't know if you hear it in this piece so much, maybe a little bit, but this particular symphony that I just mentioned, To My Homeland, Aan Mijn Vaderland, I still speak the language somewhat, It was very long and spun out, and at times maybe almost tiny little bit boring. You almost want to make a cut here and there, and then the music gets a little bit better maybe. Like maybe almost sometimes you want to do in Bruckner, right? And I think this piece in a way also quite spun out, maybe more than most composers would like today, but on the other hand, quite nice, and it's not that bad. So, so there we have it. I got this copy from this antiquariat in the Netherlands a year ago, and there it is, must be the first edition. I doubt that it's ever been reprinted again. Romance for viool and piano. This is all in Dutch, of course. Bernhard Sweers, there he is. Published in Amsterdam. Oh yeah, and it's dedicated to Miss B.A.S. Boese, whom I don't know who this is. I have no idea. Miss Boese, I have no idea. I googled the name, and I found all kinds of string players with the same last name in America. So I thought maybe I'll try to contact them sometime and see if they're relatives somehow, because it seems a bit too significant. But there you have it. And I think it's a lovely little piece. As we worked on it, I said, gee, that's nice. There's all these nice little indications for how to play this piece. It says op D snaar on the D string. Oh, and the tempo indication, matig. Matig means moderato. And so all these things. So it's just in a way fun for Dutch people to read music indications in your own language. Of course, it's so unusual. German composers do that, Italians, of course, French, but the Dutch tend to use Italian terminology, or maybe German, or maybe French, but not usually Dutch. So there it is. Very nice. Should we play it one more time? Would you like that?
Yes.
I think it's quite nice. This is beginning bit, right? Which somewhat comes back in the end. A little bit variation, not much. And then the middle bit, in which Sweers gets quite excited almost, right? You have to imagine Sweers, I suppose, living in the heart of Amsterdam, and maybe he was out for a walk, and all kinds of interesting things happen in Amsterdam, as I'm sure you're aware of. Maybe you can think of it that way, or maybe not. But nice little piece. I had, also ironic, never heard of this piece, and rarely heard of a composer in the Netherlands. I knew of him, but he didn't play that sort of music. But, oh, here in Australia, teaching music a bit at university, or not at university, doesn't matter. It's a nice thing to get it in the mail, and to try this out. And so now that we are recording Jan Piet's Choice, I thought it was a nice thing to play this once, and hopefully it's now present online, and maybe other people can enjoy it too. I don't know. We'll play it one more time. It's a romance for viool and piano by Bernhard Sweers, the great Dutch composer, who was in his mid-40s. Yeah, in his mid-40s, when he wrote this piece of music in 1897. And he lived another good quarter century, and I think what happened to him was he saw all kinds of new musical styles coming that increasingly he did not know what to do with and did not like. And increasingly, I think he saw himself becoming a little bit of a musical dinosaur, a little bit. And maybe feeling a little bit sorry for his music and his styles of music, and for maybe himself even, I don't know. But yeah, he taught very, very many composers who later became important in their own right in Amsterdam. And learned it all from Jadas, a great arranger of the Senator Passion and many other stuff. So there we go. Bernard Sweer's Romance from 1897, the year my grandmother Steen was born. 10, 15 kilometers away from Amsterdam. And it's his Romance for violin and piano. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, thank you Jody Ostenfeld, of course, for playing this. And I'm hoping that this might become a little bit of a series maybe later this year with violin and maybe viola music by Dutch composers. So I'll be back on May 8th here for Jan Piet's Choice. In the meantime, Happy New Year once again, and thank you for the support in the last year and a half here for Jan Piet's Choice. Thank you. Next week, there's another choice.